Someone once told me that dreams are nothing but boring and meaningless hallucinations. They might seem important to you, the dreamer, but to anyone else, your dreams are just pointless drivel. For most of my life, I was totally on board with that idea. Everyone dreams, and there was no evidence at all that those dreams had meaning. The dreams of my friends were indeed thoroughly boring when told to me. I never gave it much of a second thought. Even so, I've always wanted to tell others about my dreams. I've had terrible nightmares my whole life, and I felt I'd feel some catharsis and relief if I could only express them to others. Most of my nightmares were standard fare. Chase sequences, forgetting appointments, etc. A few were more intense, like getting caught in a grain mill or having my legs sawed off by a kidnapper. One nightmare had me forced to kill clones of my family to escape a maze. That last one was really bad. I could hear their screams and pleas as I brutally murdered them, one by one. I know how bad that last one sounds, which is why I haven't told anyone about it. They'd get freaked out. And no, this isn't a letter about how I psychotically killed my whole family thinking it was a dream. I'm not crazy. I repeat, I am not crazy. I need you to believe me because what I've seen, what I am seeing right now, is something that needs to get out. I'm not equipped to handle this, but maybe someone out there has some idea of what's happening. Several weeks ago, the smoke alarms went off in my house and ripped me out of a deep sleep. It turns out that one of my roommates left a pan on the burner. But the important part is that the moment I woke up, I had a very strong impression that some figure was leaning over me, just moments before. I could see its outline in my mind, and I couldn't recall any details. All I could think of was that the thing leaning over me seemed short. Something about the size and shape of its head seemed disproportionate to the rest of its body. This experience did not scare me. I assumed I was remembering the final scene of a nightmare I'd otherwise forgotten. I had just been woken up from a deep sleep after all. The whole ordeal inspired me to keep a dream journal, as I'd heard that journaling your dreams right when you wake up actually makes you remember them more vividly. I was curious what had been going on in the dream with the disproportioned figure. The dream journal experiment was uneventful for the first couple weeks, not much progress. Then I suddenly had success, and awoke one morning with some vivid memories of the dreams from the night before. Inspired by my quick improvement, I bumped up my efforts in the morning and began to really rack my brain over the details of the dreams from the previous nights. This eventually started to seem like a bad idea. My impression that I had a lot of nightmares seemed to hold up. For every pleasant dream I recalled, at least 3 or 4 nightmares came along with. The definition and clarity with which I recalled the previous night's events lent them an eeriness that started to seep into my waking hours as well. How do you go to work during the day when you have vivid memories of setting your friends on fire earlier that morning? How can you relax when your mind is preoccupied with images of being chased, torn apart, and eaten by cannibals and their hunting dogs? Still, I kept journaling. In a weird way, my terrifying success made me feel like I was developing a skill, and I was proud of my determination. I was doing something pretty interesting with my life. Then, 2 nights ago, I fell asleep after a long day of running errands around town. I found myself dreaming of one of the streets I'd walked on in the day, holding groceries in my arms. I was confused. I knew I was supposed to be shopping, but I couldn't remember which store I was headed to. I looked around and noticed the street was empty, which was strange during the day. And then, walking my way down the opposite sidewalk, I saw the figure. It looked a little different from a distance than it had in my previous dream, but I instantly knew and recognized it. The thing was short, very short, like an imp, and its gait was more of a dance than a walk, hopping from one foot to the next as it waltzed down the street. Its body was round and its limbs were short, and its entire form was black. Not black as in skin color, but black as though my field of view had a hole torn right in the middle, and that hole was moving my way, creeping larger and closer with every hop. Its head, however, was not black. Or maybe it was, but I couldn't tell, because it seemed like it may have been wearing a mask stretched around where its head should have been. The mask, if it was one, was very white, to the point where it stuck out almost more absurdly than its body amongst the otherwise normal street. I stood there, transfixed partially by intrigue and partially by fear, as the thing bounced my way. At first it didn't seem to notice me at all, but the closer it got, the slower it hopped, until eventually it stopped altogether, directly across the street from where I stood. Then with a shuddering crack, it snapped its head to face my direction. The suddenness of its movement startled me, but disorientation overcame my surprise as I jolted up from my bed. It was already light out, though I was so tired I felt like I'd only slept an hour or so. It took me a few minutes to wake up enough to remember that I'd just been dreaming before being shocked awake. Then I remembered the face. The figurehead looked almost cute from a distance, but that face dispelled any notions that it had been some innocent fairy or child. The white mask was elastic and fastened, like it was made of powdered skin stretched over a skull and pinned at the back. The eyes bulged out of their sockets, looking more like glass marbles than squishy flesh. Every feature was exaggerated. The nose too large and crooked, the mouth too wide and containing too many teeth. My time spent picturing the face was all-encompassing, and when I eventually came back into awareness, I felt like I'd woken for a second time that morning. I felt unnerved and a little under the weather, but I dutifully recorded my memories in my journal, and then I called off work and took the day to relax and unwind. It's possible that was the last normal day of my life. Last night I went to bed again at a normal time. I remembered the face and scared myself awake for a while before finally dozing off. In my dreams, the thing and its face were waiting for me. I was in a small room, sitting in the corner, and it was standing there opposite me in the room, as though it were waiting for me to arrive. I wanted to stand, but my limbs felt slow and unwieldy, and I couldn't stabilize myself enough to rise from the ground. The figure walked a little closer, and it spoke.
"You see me."
Its voice was hoarse and frantic, like it was at the end of its sanity after a long ordeal. I let out a soft yeah that was more of a question than an answer. The imp stood there for a second, like it hadn't received my response, before blurting out another hoarse cry, its voice cracking under its own volume.
"How long?"
I didn't know how to answer. I felt paralyzed and trapped, like I often did in my dreams. Was this a dream? Of course it was. Yes, I could tell now. This was definitely a dream, and I'd dreamt this creature before. Should I say that? Would it understand me if I explained that I'd seen it once before? Is that something it wanted to know? My silence made it creep forward. It wasn't dancing like it had been on the sidewalk. Its movements now were slow and awkward, like a young child sneaking past their parents' room at night. It leaned forward, bringing its contorted face close to mine. I felt the wideness of my eyes as I took in its features. As it leaned nearer, its skin pulled tight at the sides, and I saw tears from around the cheeks as it strained against the tightness of its own face. In that moment, I recognized it. I had not only seen the urchin once before, or even twice if you count the silhouette that leaned over me months ago. I had seen its distorted, uncanny visage in nearly every nightmare I had ever remembered. This is the creature that haunted and tortured me. This is the evil that trapped me in mazes and forced me to kill my friends and family. Each time I had seen it, I recognized it from all the nightmares before. But that recognition never made it to my waking memories. Each night, I went to bed expecting nothing in particular, and each night this masked horror tormented me, never to be remembered until tomorrow's nightmares set in. I felt fear, not so much of this creature, but of forgetting. I knew I would forget this encounter, and I would go to sleep the next day as though nothing had happened. My memories from past nightmares flooded into me, along with complete helplessness. Each night I begged myself to find a way to warn myself that I was haunted by this demon. Every night I felt the claustrophobia set in with the knowledge that I was trapped in this hellish dimension, completely separate from the waking world, with no way to avoid coming back. The imp leaned in even farther, tearing even deeper gashes into its own portrait.
This time I'll visit you.
And then it was over. I was out of the dream and in my bed. Today's morning had come and I had woken. I rubbed my eyes, sat up, and froze. For in the corner of my room now sits the imp, facing my way. Its glassy and unblinking eyes rolled in my direction. When I stand up, the imp stands up too. When I walk to leave the room, the imp walks towards me. When I stay in bed, the imp stays in its corner. I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. I can't reach the bathroom, so I've been soiling the corner near my bed because I don't know what else to do. I had my laptop on my nightstand, so I was able to reach for it without upsetting the monster that's watching me. I'm writing this to you out of desperation. Am I still in a dream? Does anyone know what's happening? I don't know how long I can sit here. I'm afraid to sleep. I'm afraid to move. And I'm afraid to do anything that might draw its attention. Someone must know something. Someone, please help me. I want things to go back to normal. I don't want to be here anymore.